If Yona of the Dawn were to get a season 2, would it do as well as the Apothecary Diaries? Before I dive into the subject, hi, my name is Lauren. I've been making Yona of the Dawn content for the past 4 years of my life, as it is my favorite shoujo anime. However, I'm just as obsessed with the Apothecary Diaries. I have read all the light novels, I have read the web novels that have come out after the light novels, and I will try to make this video as unbiased as possible. The first question we should ask ourselves in this situation is, how do we get recommended a show? It's typically through an algorithm, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or literally algorithms like My Anime List, which are here to recommend you anime. And I quote, "Given the complexity and diversity of user behavior, it is essential for platforms to develop robust methodologies that can categorize users based on both psychographic and demographic characteristics. This requires a deep understanding of not just what viewers watch, but also why they watch it." This is what I'm going to dive into in this video. Why did we watch the Apothecary Diaries and why did we enjoy it? I could ask you, but your answer wouldn't necessarily be correct. For example, some people might have watched it for the romance, and yet if I give them another romance show, they might not have enjoyed it, even though both shows have romance in it. Which is where the second quote comes in, that algorithms are highly effective in handling noisy data and outliers, which are common in user feedback and viewing history data related to anime. The algorithm's flexibility allows it to detect clusters in datasets where viewer preferences may not follow a simple uniform pattern, which is often the case in anime industry. So like I said, it might not be as simple as it sounds. However, there is an answer to the question. It's called inference generation. Inference generation is the process in which we form logical conclusions or interpretations by connecting ideas in a meaningful manner. Here's an example. If I give you the sentence, "The soldier left a trail of red on every island," then you can interpret it by guessing that red either means blood, violence, destruction, and so on. However, if I say, "This turtle is pink," there's nothing to interpret. It's just a fact. I'm spoon feeding it to you. Oh! And some of you may have noticed that the first sentence that I pulled, the one about the soldier, is from Epic the Musical. "Left a trail of red on every island." And those of you who were able to connect the dots about what red meant in the sentence and where I took the sentence from, there's a rewarding feeling that comes with it from being able to connect the dots. Neuroscientific research actually shows that when you are reading and trying to comprehend something by reading through the lines, you have the reward centers of our brain that are actually being stimulated a lot more than if you're just being spoon-fed information. And with no surprise, that is exactly what the Apothecary Diaries is doing. It gives us all the details, all the puzzle pieces, and then it leaves it up to us to put them together before Mao Mao actually gives us the answer. Take the colorblind door episode if you know what I'm talking about, and you'll understand that it is easy for you to figure things out before Mao Mao actually reveals what's going on. And that feels rewarding, it feels nice, it's like a narrative dopamine. If we take that and contrast it with Yona of the Dawn, we'll start to see the differences. In Yona of the Dawn, it's a lot more this is this, this is that. And you can theorize some things, but you don't have enough information at the very start to actually be able to conceive a valuable answer. For example, at the end of the very first episode of Yona of the Dawn, we see, spoilers, Suwon killing King Il. And that just villainizes Suwon from the very start. We don't know why he did it, we just know he killed someone and that murder is bad. It's not until volume 34 of Yona of the Dawn that we actually get a glimpse into Suwon's backstory and that we're able to correctly theorize what is going on with him and why he did what he did. This doesn't mean that Yona of the Dawn is badly written, it just means that it's written in a different way. Instead of getting logical payouts throughout the story, we're getting emotional ones. Next, let's talk demographics. So as you may or may not know, Yona of the Dawn is a shoujo, whereas the Apothecary Diaries is a seinen. What does that mean? Shoujo stories are stories that are published through magazines in Japan that are dedicated for young girls, whereas seinen is actually for older men. Now that may be surprising for a lot of people, but the Apothecary Diaries just play their cards correctly. A lot of people mistake the Apothecary Diaries as a shoujo because they notice elements of it in the series. And that's what you call a dual address. It's able to take elements from two different demographics, put them together, and not have one overtake the other. It's pretty rare, but we have seen it before, like in magical girl animes, where they're often intended for both older men and also younger women at once. It's really clever storytelling. Like the Apothecary Diaries will have a young girl as a protagonist, which is what we often see in a shoujo anime. However, it'll also invoke sexual topics from the start, not necessarily for fan service, but for cultural understanding. It's mature but never vulgar. Yona of the Dawn is a series that is intended for a younger audience, and it's actually really easy to understand. From just looking at the 4 dragons and being able to characterize them through color, to also looking at the youthful tones of the story, or even the lessons that they try to give you, like have courage or be passionate about what you want to do. It's very kid-like at the start. It does become much more mature as you go through the story, but if we get a second season, is it really gonna go there? You also have to understand that for someone to get to a second season, the first season cannot bore them. And for the majority of people who watch Yona of the Dawn, me included, when we watched the first season, we just finished it and we were like, okay, next.
It takes a long time for it to actually like slot into place. I consider this to be a slow build story.
The entirety of the anime feels like all this build-up with no real payoff or resolution.
So I will say, in the beginning when I read Yona, if you followed my reviews on Goodreads, I really was not hooked on Yona in the beginning. I wouldn't say I disliked Yona of the Dawn, but I was not hooked the way I expected.
It doesn't hook you from the start the way the Apothecary Diaries does. I also did a poll on my Discord to ask people what they think the actual age recommendation should be for Yona of the Dawn, and here are the results. I went to an anime convention at the beginning of August and I watched a panel where a manga analyst actually talked about how a lot of shoujo manga, when posted on a website, will hide the label shoujo because they want as many people as possible to read it, and just the label shoujo itself is a turnoff for many people. Of course, when we girls see a shonen tag near a manga, that doesn't do any effect on if we're picking up the book or not, but for guys it actually does. They're a lot less likely to read a story if it is labeled as shoujo. All this isn't to say that Yona of the Dawn wouldn't do great as a season 2. It just might not do as well as the numbers that the Apothecary Diaries was able to put out to the world. The Apothecary Diaries is one of its kind. The stories lets us figure things out rather than just emotionally lead us like Yona of the Dawn would. Moral of the story, while Yona of the Dawn will always have a place in my heart, the Apothecary Diary really earned its place in my mind. Yes, really. Relay. Really. 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 I don't have a name for you. What's your name?